the Detroit Opera House. His father, old man Whitney, owned this huge conglomerate of costume stores and music publishing firms and this big old vaudeville and opera house in Detroit. And he had another friend who was the manager of the Lyceum, another Detroit vaudeville theater. And the two of them heard this song that was written by a vaudevillian actress named Effie Kamen, and it was called The Dance of the Brownies. And they liked it so much they offered her 10 silver dollars for this piece. And they first published it through the Detroit Opera House, and in a couple of years they realized they had a major seller on their hands, and they decided, well, let's go into the publishing industry ourselves. So in 1895 they started the Whitney-Warner Publishing Company. Now the important thing about this song is that it was played a lot by the bands, but it was really played a lot by piano students. And if you listen to some of our 1910 and 1912 rags, you will find out that they were all written by young people who learned how to play the piano via the Dance of the Brownies, which was continuously published from 1893 to 1930. So here we go, Dance of the Brownies. Well, that piano teacher flunked me. Let's see. Mr. Remick bought into this firm, and he discovered that even though that thing sold pretty well, and that this is the Lyceum Theater curtain, and Whitney-Warner was always promoting their songs there, but he didn't know how to do very good accounting. So Mr. Remick discovered that his little firm was almost bankrupt for when he bought into. So he had to save it. So he turned to this man, Fred St. Clair Stone, who was the leader of the Fenny's Orchestra, an all-African-American orchestra in Detroit that were very, very popular. They played everywhere on the excursion boats and in the nightclubs. And he asked him if he could purchase one of his tunes, My Ragtime Baby, and we're going to play this. This is the song that saved the Whitney-Warner Company from going bankrupt. that got the firm off the ground. Then Mr. Remick went around looking for wonderful tunes to play, and he really fell in love with this J. Bolt lamp. Now, I've met his granddaughter, and it is pronounced lamp, and the J stands for Jens. We've always wanted to know that. And we're going to play his Creole Bells, which was one of the tunes that really helped Mr. Remick get going on this firm, this Whitney-Warner firm. You ready? When he was riding on a train to Hiawatha, Kansas from Kansas City, where he worked for Hoffman Piano and Organ as a sheet music demonstrator. And this changed his entire life and ended him up with a great job in Detroit for Mr. Remick. So I'm going to play you a little bit of Hiawatha. It was inspired by the train ride. Remick had this brand new all-electric building, thanks to those who have made, they had lots of other tunes, but those were the main profit makers. And so after Hiawatha came out, everybody was writing what they called Indian tunes, Indian intermezzos, but they were also trying to write tunes, intermezzos, named after towns in Kansas. And I'm going to let Dennis tell you, since he's from Kansas, a little bit about the next tune we're playing, which is Iola.
The only thing I'm going to say is that my hometown is Kansas City, Kansas, and that's where Charles L. Johnson was born. And when I was first reading They All Play Ragtime back in the 70s, I was quite surprised to find all the stuff that happened locally back then. And once I consumed all the easily available sources of information, I was left with a thirst for more. So I began to do my own research, and I had actually managed to get the phone number of Charles L. Johnson's widow from a ragtime collector named Thornton Haggard. And so I called her up on the phone. And she was a real pain to get information out of, because, you know, I'd ask her a question and she'd go, well, I guess that's all I can tell you. And then I'd say, well, what about this? And then she'd go, well, I guess that's all I can tell you. So it was like pulling teeth to get anything out of her. But as we know, this song, Iola, first it was published locally, then Remick picked it up about a couple of years later. I guess Daniels sold it to them. And back in about 38, 39, I think it was, this saxophone player in a swing band named Saxy Dowell, he decided to use the melody from Iola for a song that he did called Playmates. I'm sure a lot of you know that song, but you'll notice that it was stolen almost note for note from Charlie Johnson. Well, once he heard it, he wasn't going to sit back and let that go by, so he started legal proceedings, and in the Kansas City newspapers you can find information on the court proceedings. Fortunately, Johnson won. Of course, it was an open and shut case because it's a note for note lift. And he got all the money, and it helped him, you know, get through the after Depression years. So, also, Charles L. Johnson was a string musician, and he had a mandolin group called the Walton Mandolin Club, and he did arrangements and stuff for mandolin in the early days. So, that's all I gotta say. It was named for Iola, Kansas, and Daniel's piece was named for Hiawatha, Kansas.
show a picture of what his sheet music will later do that. My uncle's job for Remick was to run around opening up Whitney-Warner sheet music counters in the new department stores all over the country. And then he had to have people to run them. So he went and got a Missourian friend, the Joplin kid, Percy Winrick, who was writing for Vanity Presses in Chicago, and got him into the Remick fold by hiring him to run the sheet music department at Gimbel's department store in Milwaukee. And Percy became one of the great hit tune writers for the Jerome Remick Corporation and many other people too. Do you want to say anything about Percy, dear?
Yeah, well, he was from down in Joplin, Missouri, and that was a big mining town in those days. And there was this renowned place down there. It's called the House of Lords Saloon. It was 3 floors. The bottom floor was like a saloon. The second floor was gambling, and the third floor was prostitution. I guess it's what you would call a full-service place. That was where a lot of the miners used to go, but they had top-notch entertainment there. All the top ragtime pianists from the area played there, including Scott Joplin. And what Bob Darch, who interviewed Percy Winrick told him that was where he encountered Scott Joplin, who was playing at the House of Lords. Percy was just a kid at the time. He couldn't actually get in, but he knew one of the gamblers there named Babe Latour who would sneak him in behind the piano, and so he was reveling in the music. He said what he remembered most was that Scott Joplin told him, always write and play from the heart, and you can never go wrong. And he always said that's what he tried to do. And since I see one of our old-time ragtime people out there who's from Percy Winrick's hometown, Joplin, Missouri, Smiley Wallace, I'd like to send this out to him, because he's been a Percy Winrick fan since the 50s. And so this is a piece he did, a very catchy piece called Ragtime Chimes. Daniels got from Carl Hoffman to publish. And back when I read They'll Play Ragtime, I guess it was Blush and Janice interviewed Charles L. Johnson, and he told them about Peaceful Henry and Harry Kelly. So I just looked in the phone book, and there was a Mrs. E. Harry Kelly listed in there. And I called her up, and it was his widow. She was still alive. And we ended up going over to her house, and she gave us like photographs and a lot of his music, including 2 unpublished rags in manuscript form that he had. And the story on this is that they named it for the janitor at Carl Hoffman Music Store. He was a very, very, very peaceful person, so much so that when they had an argument there between the people, they would bring it to him and let him decide who was the winner of the argument and stuff. So that's the original edition there on the right. There were later editions. But here's Peaceful Henry. Does anybody have it? Anyway, we're searching for it.
And all those drawers have held sheet music, alphabetical order, and the customer came in and they asked the staff to play anything that they wanted to hear, be it Beethoven or ragtime, and they all asked for ragtime and good songs. And I just wanted you to notice how many women are on the stairs. They were the ones that got hired, especially if they were pretty and young and unmarried. And they brought in a lot of people into the store and the department stores. And some of those women began to start writing ragtime. And they were darn good pianists. That's how they got the jobs. And the one that we're going to play now is Irene Giblin. She was hired by my great uncle to open up to be a sheet music demonstrator at the Grand Leader in St. Louis. She was 14 years old when she was hired. She worked there for 7 years demonstrating sheet music. And she started writing it. And we're going to play her Chicken Chowder, which was one of her first and best rags. She wrote at age 16. And we think that Irene Giblin is the most prolific of the ragtime women composers. She's not the most prolific composer, but she wrote the most rags. There are about 350 women that were known to have published in the ragtime era, mostly ragtime and syncopated stuff. Here's Chicken Chowder. And again, there's all the drawers where they were keeping all their sheet music. This is where they would be taking orders. And I wanted you to notice how many women are on the staff here. Remick was famous for his beautiful women, both in his Chicago, New York, and all of his offices, and all the sheet music demonstrated. But many of these women were not just secretaries, they were staff composers. And the last song that we want to play here is one of our favorite of the staff composers, Charlotte Blake, and we'll be playing her Poker Rag. Ready?